Hello, this is Simon from GAMEZOMATIK and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm doing a vlog, which is something I've not done in ages, but I thought I'd come on and do a little bit of a talk about a subject which I haven't had the chance to do. Excuse me about this chair, it's creaking a lot. I haven't had a chance to do in quite a while, get some FaceTime with the camera, but seeing as I've got the opportunity, I thought I'd come on and I'd make a vlog. And what I want to talk about today is I suppose the overall subject of this video is game collecting as a hobby dying. Yeah, it's the hobby dying. Not playing games. Playing games isn't dying. You know, they're still making lots of games, and lots of people, probably more than ever, are playing games. But as a gaming enthusiast of my generation, what I would say the original gaming generation, who were there pretty much from the beginning, you know, from the late 70s onwards, right through the 80s. Even though I kind of got more into gaming because I'm not as old, you know, I'm old, but I'm not that old. I'd say sort of mid 80s. You know, I'd say from the birth of the hobby, really. You know, I've been there for a long time playing games. So as a more traditional gamer, is the hobby dying? Now, the first thing I want to do that I've got on my list here, because I have made some notes, I've actually prepared myself slightly for this video, which is not like me, I normally just wing it. The first thing that I've written down is, am I a collector? Do I class myself as a collector of games? And the answer to that is no, even though I'm always coming on here and I'm sort of saying my Xbox 360 collection, or, you know, I've even done videos, my original Xbox collection, my PS2 collection. It is a collection of stuff, yes, but I personally don't class myself as a game collector. I'd say I'm more of a game enthusiast. And how I differentiate between the two is, to me, a collector is someone who will go out maybe and say, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to get a full original Xbox collection. I'm going to get every game that was released on the Xbox. And they'll go out and they'll find that. And that's absolutely fine, by the way. I'm not criticising anyone for doing what they want to do within the boundaries of the hobby. But everything I'm going to talk about here is relative to myself. And yeah, they'll go out and they'll buy every original Xbox game or every PS2 game, whatever they're collecting for, no matter the game. So, you know, they'll buy all them sports titles, NFL 98 or Major League Hockey, whatever, NHL or FIFA, and they'll buy all them sports titles. They'll buy every racing game, even the, you know, I mean, imagine if you're collecting for a full Wii collection, all the shovelware that you've got to collect for that, you know. And to me, that's a collector. Or maybe not always someone who goes for a full collection. It can be someone who, say, collects snares, but all the games have got to be boxed. They've got to have the manuals, and they've got to have all the original boxes with not many creases on, and they kind of put them, some people like to display their games, which is fine. It may look like I'm displaying my games. I'm actually not. I don't have that much room. This is like a bedroom, and I've literally got some shelves behind me, and that's the only space I've got to put anything. So they're not really display. I'd be more than happy to get my games and stick them in a big cupboard somewhere full of shelves, and I wouldn't care. So, you know, because this is actually my bedroom that all my gaming stuff is in. So I don't collect them to display. But again, I'm not criticising everyone who does, because everyone does things for different reasons. But coming back to myself, because this video is all about me, obviously. I don't class myself as a game collector. I class myself as a gaming enthusiast. And the reason I say that is because I only collect games that I like, and I'm going to explain that a little bit. I've done loads of pickup videos on this channel, and I've bought loads of games, especially early on when I started YouTube. There's a very easy trap to fall into when you're new to YouTube and you think, oh, I'm going to do a gaming channel, and going to start showing my games collection off and things like that. And the trap is that you do a pickup video and you'll get a couple of views on that, and then you'll do another one a month later, and you know, you think, oh, this is going all right, this, you know, and then a month will come where you haven't really bought much, and then what happens, and I've seen this on a lot of channels, and I'm not criticising everyone because I did it myself when I started YouTube, is you'll start buying stuff to show on the channel, and that's the worst thing you can do. You know, and when I first started YouTube, my first channel, about 5 or 6 years ago now, about 5 years ago I did my first channel, can't remember, maybe 4 years ago, whatever. Not this channel, the original channel that I had. I did the same thing. I'd go out and and it was a lot easier to find stuff then, especially charity shops and thrift stores, which it's kind of starting to dry up out there now, but it was very easy to find stuff back then, and you just buy stuff because it was cheap, and to an extent that I still do that, but I'll get into that later. Yeah, you buy stuff just because it was cheap, and then just to show it on a pickup video, and you learn pretty quickly, or I learned pretty quickly, that one, that you're just wasting a lot of money doing that because you're buying stuff that you're not going to play, and this is where I'm going to get into talking about myself as a collector. And two, that yeah, it's just it's unsustainable really, because eventually you're going to run out of games because you're going to have everything, or you're going to run out of cheap games, and then you're going to start putting your hand in your pocket and buying expensive stuff. Now the way this ties into what I was talking about before, where I was talking about what kind of collector am I. I don't think I am a collector. I think I'm a gaming enthusiast, and this is where I come from. Is I only buy games that I like, or games that I think I'll like. You know, I won't if I walk into a shop and they've got 30 original Xbox original games or 30 PS2 games, I'm not just going to buy them all. I'll only buy the ones I think I like. And now I will buy stuff that I've not played before, don't get me wrong, but I don't keep games that I don't like. Every game I've tried. I always try the games out that I buy when I get home, even if I only play the first hour of them. I try to, every game that I buy, you know, if I've been on a day out with them, you know, with my wife, and I've been around some charity shops or whatever, and I've picked up a good pile of like maybe PS2 games or whatever platform it is. I generally always try and come home and at some point over the next couple of days play at least an hour of each game to see whether I like that game. And this is the difference between maybe collectors and myself, why I don't really class myself as a collector, because if I don't like the game, I'll just get rid of it, and that's regardless of value. If I pick up a game that's worth £150, if I don't like it, I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to resell it. So, whereas I could just put it on the shelf and display it and say, well, you know, that's a rare copy of whatever game it is. That's rare. That's a hard to find game. Look at it. It's on the shelf there. It's great. You know, it looks nice and everything. But if you're not going to play it, what's the point? And a good example is that, and I've mentioned this before on the channel once before, is I actually found Castlevania Symphony of the Night on PlayStation 1 in a charity shop a couple of years ago for £1, and it was the double one, and it had the booklet with it and everything. Now I already own that game on my Xbox Live Arcade, and I got it home, and I am a big PS1 fan, so you know, out of all the games to find for a PS1 enthusiast like myself, it's a bit of a holy grail sort of game. Now I like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, don't get me wrong, it's a really good game, but I already owned it on Xbox Live Arcade, which kind of looks and runs a little bit better anyway, for a start, and I did keep it for about a month. It was just sat on my shelf amongst all my other PS1 games, and one day I just looked at it and thought, you know what, I'm never going to play that game because I've already got it on Xbox. It looks better on Xbox. And I know some people are purists, and that's fine if that's your thing. You know, some people only play games on the original platforms. They've got to be, you know, they can only play PS1 games on a PS1, which is fine because I've got a CRT telly. You know, most of my PS1 games I prefer to play on the CRT through an original PS1. But when we're talking about a game that's worth £150, £160, or it was back then anyway, it's doubled now. I think it's gone for about £300 now. It was just pointless me it'd be sitting there. I kept it about 3 or 4 weeks and I sold it. I just thought that I put it on eBay and sold it. I made quite a decent profit out of it as well. And I used that money to buy some games that I knew I would play. And reinvest that, and I'm a big believer in that, and big believer in reinvesting my money back into the hobby. I buy quite a lot of games that I know I'm not going to play because I know I can get a trade in on them, and even if it's only I buy a game for £1, I'll trade it in for £2. It always goes back into the hobby because then at some point I'll walk in a CEX or whatever, and there'll always be another game there that I do want, or something I have been waiting to get. So yeah, I think that's the first point I want to make about myself as I personally don't class myself as a collector. I don't buy all special editions. I buy the odd one. I've actually just got rid of a load of my big box special editions. I had the Drake Uncharted 4 special edition with the statue. I've got rid of it. I haven't got the room to display all the statues. I've only got kind of this little shelf here and this one behind me, and these I have the Dishonored 2 with the mask, brilliant collector's edition. I love that one. One of my favourite ones, but it was just sat on a shelf since the day I've got it. It's been taking up quite a lot of room on my limited amount of shelving, and I just got rid of it. I just thought, you know, I got rid of it because I can buy the game for like £5, just the disc, and I can still play the game. So it made more sense. I have kept some of them. I've kept my Doom one because I love the Doom one, and some of these I've kept because I really like the figures, and because they're not really worth that much anyway. You know, he never sold. Like if I sold, I love this Deus Ex one with Adam Jensen. But if I sold that, I'd probably only get about 20. I think I paid him 20 quid for it, and I'd only get about £20 for it. And same with most of these ones. They're only cheap ones. These two I got behind. They don't even come with the game. The Halo one. Yeah, this Halo one here. Look up this way. That I got that in a deal. I think Game was selling them off for £20 or something about a year ago. But it doesn't come with the game. And I liked it, so I bought that. And the same with the Recore one. I love Recore. It's actually one of the few Xbox One exclusives that I really like. And again, that was being sold off, I think, for like a tenner. I thought it would look good there on top of the TV, so I bought that. I've got my Wolfenstein one as well there at the back. That I'll keep because I'm a massive Wolfenstein fan. It's like one of my favourite series ever. So I'm going to keep the Wolfenstein one. And then I think the other one there is Mafia 3. And I've got a couple of others like The Last Guardian and things. I'll probably keep that one because I think that probably will hold its value. But a lot of the collector's editions I got rid of. A couple of Assassin's Creed ones I got rid of them and just bought the games because they were just taking up room. And it just wasn't practical. But if you've got a room, I mean, if I had a dedicated gaming room with loads of space, of course I'd probably have kept them and made them all in nice. And if you've got that, that's fantastic, but I haven't, and I'm not knocking anyone that collects them. Saying that though, let's be honest, the majority of gaming collectible or collector's editions don't hold the value. So if you are buying them for investments, I'd say there's only a handful that hold their value, mostly Nintendo ones actually. Nintendo seems to hold its value, but everything else doesn't really hold its value that well. So that's kind of my personal reasons. But yeah, what kind of collector are you? I'm definitely, like, I class myself as I'm a collector only in the sense that I collect or buy the games that I enjoy and I like. I don't just buy games for the sake of buying games. And if you do, then best luck to you. And if you've got the room to put them all, then enjoy. But you know, I see so many people who kind of on YouTube who buy stuff and then they resell it and then they buy it again. And you know, just stick with what you. I've got an app on my phone. With all the games, and I keep track of every game that I buy. I put it into the app and it lists it, and when I trade a game in, I'll get rid of it, I remove it, and I've got a wish list of the games that I want, that hold some nostalgic value for me, or games that I'm interested in trying at least, you know. That comes to point number 2, I suppose, which is research your games. You know, don't buy games that you know, a lot of people just pre-order a lot of stuff now that they don't really play, and I don't really understand why you'd pay £80 for a game that you haven't played yet. You can only go off trailers and things so far, you know, and or maybe a game's reputation. You know, I still pre-order the odd game, don't get me wrong. I've just pre-ordered, which is the first game I pre-ordered in a long time, the new Tomb Raider game, Shadow of the what's it called, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, simply because I know I'll love it, because I'm a massive Tomb Raider fan. I loved Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and you know, I know I'm going to like that game, so I haven't got a problem pre-ordering it. You know, it's very unlikely I'm not going to like that game. And the other game I may pre-order will be Rage, because I love the first game. This looks like a fantastic offline, you know, kind of single-player experience, which is, you know, it's been confirmed that it's a single-player offline experience. Brilliant, fantastic. I'm happy to pre-order that game. But yeah, again, it's an easy trap to fall into, just pre-ordering everything, you know. Especially people who buy a lot of the collector's editions, they'll just go out and pre-order every collector's edition. I just can't afford to do that. It costs a fortune. Although there's not as many games being produced for this generation as there were for the last. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to cover anyway, which I've rambled on about now for about 20 minutes, is what kind of collector are you? The other thing about the second point I've written down here about is game collecting dying, and the reason why I say is it dying is because obviously the first point is a lot of games are going away from physical media, so more and more games are just going download only. So obviously, being an accumulator or a collector of games, it's going to get harder. There's going to be less out there. It's all going to be, you know, it's inevitable that eventually pretty much everything is going to be download only. And I personally think it'll go the way of kind of like limited run games or something like that, where everything's going to be download, but there will be companies that will make special physical copies of each game, and then you'll have to order them off them. I don't know whether there'll be this mass kind of production in 10 years of discs still. I think physical media, especially optical discs, I don't think I think maybe the next generation of consoles may have discs on. I don't think it's quite ready to die yet, but I certainly think the generation after that, it will not use any form of physical media. I think it'll just be a big hard drive in a console, and that'll be it. And that's another reason, you know, maybe the hobby is dying, is as a collecting point of view, because, you know, you're even starting to get some collector's editions now that don't have the game, and like these two I was just talking about, both of the Halo one, it actually did come with the game, but the Halo one did come with the game actually, but it was a code. It wasn't a physical copy of the game. The Recall one didn't even come with the game at all. You have to just go out and buy the game separately. So, and I think that's the way it's going to go. I think it's going to be like that, where you'll get special editions with models and maps and things like that in it, but it won't be, you know, you won't get a physical copy of the game. You'll just get a code in a box. And so that's another reason why I think game collecting is dying. pretty current trends in gaming. So that kind of ties into what I was just talking about, physical copies of games and things like that. But also, as a whole, especially it's become more prevalent in this generation more than the last. Games are changing. There's less single player experiences. Everything is angled towards online. Even single player games, I think, slightly angled towards online. Consoles are angled towards being online all the time. The Xbox One is just everything. You cannot play your games unless that is connected to the internet. I didn't even know that. I've had an Xbox One for a couple of years now, and I only recently realised that because my internet's never gone off while I've been on it, I didn't know. And then a couple of weeks ago, I didn't have an internet connection and I couldn't play any of the bloody games on my Xbox One because it saves all your game saves to the cloud, which is totally. It's basically, if they ever turn that off, that whole console is useless. I think it does save some stuff to the console. I'm not 100% sure. It's very unclear about what it does save, what it doesn't save. But I know there's been a couple of times where I couldn't even play the games because I couldn't sign into Xbox Live. Unless you're signed into your Xbox Live account, it won't even let you play the games. So, I only really keep my Xbox One for my rock. I play Rock Band 4 and I've got like 600 songs on it. And I don't want to lose all them because I wouldn't be able to play them if I got them. But other than that, I use it more as a media kind of streaming device than I do a gaming machine. But that kind of ties into its game collecting tie-in because, eventually, everything's going to be, there'll be no optical media, and there's the biggest trend going towards online gaming, and a lot of games now are just online only. You got your Overwatch, Fortnite, PUBG. It's all these kind of experiences, and they're not games you can collect for really. My son plays Fortnite like most 10-year-olds do, and he's a game collector only in the sense of the amount of stuff that he's bought off the store. Extra outfits. I mean, if you go into his profile on Fortnite, he's got 30 outfits, and he's got all different axes and whatever you buy in that game. But none of it's sort of physical. It's all downloaded cosmetic items for the game. And maybe that's what people are going to be showing off in 20 or 30 years. People won't be showing off their physical discs. They'll be showing off, it'll be come round to my house and I'll boot up my console and you can have a look at how much stuff I've downloaded off the store. So yeah. What else have I written here? Yeah, that's another thing I've written. The way collecting seems to have gone, especially in the last 4 years, I'd say 3 or 4 years, it seems there's been a boom in game collecting, and it seems to be kind of the hip thing to do now is to collect games. When I started kind of accumulating games, I started by, I was a big PC gamer for a long time, and a lot of games I could download. But the main reason I started recollecting a lot of the physical media is, as Windows evolved, a lot of the older games stopped working on Windows, and some of these games, a lot of them were released on other platforms. So PS2, original Xbox, PS3, Xbox 360, and so the games that wouldn't work on PC, I started to rebuy for console. And although I've always owned consoles, I've always been a bit of a mixed gamer between PC and consoles. But there's definitely, I've noticed now that in the last 3 or 4 years there seems to have been a boom in the hobby of game collecting. Like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, not that many people were collecting games. People were buying games and playing games, but not collecting old games. And all of a sudden there seems to have been this massive explosion in game collecting, and it's like every fucker's game collecting, everyone. I used to go to like a car boot sale or a charity shop, I used to be able to go in a charity shop or a thrift store and no one was looking at the games. There'd be stacks of them in the back, in a box on the floor, in the corner, and no one was looking at them. No one gave a shit, and there were hundreds. I used to be able to go in and, I mean, most of my PS2 stuff, I was lucky, you know, I got in on it early. I managed to re-get most of my PS2 game collection now. And there's, you know, some really good titles in my PS2 stuff that's hard to find now. I managed to get most of that, like in charity shops and Cash Generator and places like that, and before the game kind of collecting boom kicked in. And now you go in, and especially like if you go to a car boot, or you know, I think they call it, like in the US, they're like garage, can't say the word, garage sales, yeah, or car boots they're called over here, like car boot sales. You literally see swarms of fellas, kind of my age, swarming around tables, kind of fighting over a copy of fucking Zelda or something, you know, bartering, trying to get the guy down from $10 to $3, or you know, I actually did a car boot many years ago with my wife. We were getting rid of some stuff. We weren't getting rid of games, but we were getting rid of some DVDs and things like that. And you know, the amount of people, we put something on for like £5 or something. People were coming up and going, 50p, I'll give you 50p for it. But now you can't. I can't walk out the front door now without bumping into someone who's collecting games. And you know, it's great that everyone's suddenly into games, but some people, you know, are just buying them to make money. You know, which kind of ruins it for the rest of us. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm pretty much done with my my collection, or whatever you want to call it. The games I want, I'm nearing the end, and once I've got them all, the only stuff I'll need to buy will be the new stuff moving forward to any new releases, which, you know, judging by this 8th gen so far, isn't going to be that many. But as far as old stuff goes, and retro and previous generations, I'm pretty much done. So, you know, this doesn't really affect me too much. But, you know, yeah, it just seems to have boomed as a hobby. It seems to be the in thing now to just... Everyone just wants to collect games, you know, and, you know, I go and CEX and see, like, 14-year-olds picking up all the PS2 games. And, you know, they probably weren't even alive. You know what I mean? Or the PS2, you know, they were probably like 3 when the PS2, you know, came out or something like that. I don't, you know, I mean, it's up to them. You know, everyone's entitled to buy what they want and everything, but it just seems like everyone is into game collecting at the moment. I don't know whether it's going to last. I don't think it's sustainable. It's good for if you want to sell games. If you've already got the stuff and you want rid of it, you're going to make a killing. But I think, I don't know, that's kind of starting to peak now and it's starting to go back down. But yeah, that's another point I put, is it seems to be hip to collect games. And it seems to be a hobby that everyone's into at the moment. It's definitely had a revival. You know, gaming, you can go, retro gamers have this massive revival. You can go and buy t-shirts now with Atari written on, and Sega, and, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, if I wanted a gaming top or a t-shirt, you couldn't get one anywhere. You'd have to go on the internet and find some specialist shop that would sell them. Now I go to like Primark and they've got literally rows of gaming t-shirts. So yeah, there's been a massive boom in sort of that kind of gaming media sort of culture, and it's great, but it's a bit like the Marvel films. There is that worry that there's going to be like an oversaturation of it, and like that everyone gets. It's like anything, you know. If you water it down too much and oversaturate anything, it just becomes bland and boring and less exciting and shit. And maybe it's just because I'm old and because I've been doing it for quite a long time, buying games and accumulating games and collecting games. It just seems to be watering down the hobby a little bit, and I suppose some people think it was a good thing. The more people doing it was the good thing, but I question how many of these people are actual real gamers. How many people who buy all these retro games and go around buying these collections and putting them, actually play the games? Because that's the core of it. Are these people gamers? Whereas I could 100% say, hand on heart, I am a gamer. But the amount of people I've seen sort of sending tweets out and things, sort of saying, oh, I've got to get that remastered of Kingdom Hearts 2 or whatever, and you think, well, and then you do the math and you work out that, when Kingdom Hearts originally came out, they were like 4, and you're just a bit like, they put things like, I love this game when I was a kid, and it's like, well, I doubt you played, such and such a game. I don't think you played Grand Theft Auto Vice City when you were 4. Maybe they did, I don't know, but yeah. So gaming as a hobby, it's kind of become hip. It's become the trendy thing to do, and I kind of wish it hadn't. I still wish it was a bit more of a niche market. So, but it is what it is, as they say. Another thing I've written down here that sort of is ruining gaming for me personally, and this is hypocritical because I'm talking to you lot now about it. Going back to what I was just saying about oversaturation. I'm sorry, I know this video is a bit all over the place. I'm talking about all kinds of things. But going back to oversaturation is YouTube and streaming. Again, when I started doing YouTube on my original channel about 5 years ago, there were gaming channels around. There's always been gaming channels around. There's like Rooster Teeth and things like that. But again, it was still pretty niche. But now, I think I'd say at least 50% of YouTube now is gaming or gaming related, and then you've got the whole streaming thing, which some people are into. I'm not personally. My own personal view of streaming is I can't. I think Dean mentioned it on Escape to Gaming the other day. Actually, I haven't got the time to commit myself to sort of sit there and watch someone play a game for like 7 hours. And for me, it's like, I don't see the point. I've gone online to see, I have watched gameplay videos. I generally watch gameplay videos to see whether a game's worth buying. Have a look at some of the gameplay before I buy it. And that's my primary use of YouTube, or watching game videos, game reviews, things like that. Introspectives on games even, or game history, things like that. But to sit there and watch someone stream a game night after night after night, I just haven't got the time or the energy. And the main reason is I just think, the 6 hours that I spend watching this guy play a game, I could be playing a game myself. Why am I watching this guy play 4 hours of Call of Duty, or 6 hours of Fortnite, or whatever game it is, I don't know. I might as well just go and buy the game and experience it for myself. And I don't understand it. I'm not saying I totally hate watching other people playing games. I watch my little boy play games all the time. I love watching him, especially if it's a game that he just plays the stuff that all the kids are playing these days, a lot of online games. He's got an Xbox One, so he plays a lot of Fortnite, things like that, which doesn't interest me anyway. But I do like watching other people play some game. Years ago, I used to sit for hours watching my flatmate play on his Xbox. He had an Xbox original, and he had loads of games that I didn't have, like Halo and all that. And I used to sit and watch him play them, and I could do that for hours. We'd sit there, we'd have some beers, he'd sit and play Halo, and I'd sit and watch him. And then likewise, I had a PS2, I probably had some titles he didn't have, and he'd come and watch me play a couple of games. And so I'm not averse to watching people playing games, but the whole streaming thing. And let's face it, most of them are just trash talking each other and talking shit, and all these people, they kind of just play one game. So you get whole channels dedicated to people playing kind of Rainbow Six not Vegas, that was the good one, Rainbow Six Siege or Fortnite, or I keep going back to Fortnite because it's everywhere at the moment, or whatever. And I just don't get it. But again, I think it's watering down the hobby. I think it just waters it down into, like, it's like anything, if you mainstream it, it just becomes like corporate bullshit, and you know, people start looking at it and making money out of it, and I just don't like streaming. Which is why I've done it like twice. The only time I've done streaming maybe once or twice on this channel, it was about a year ago, and it was just a quick way to get a video out. I was literally just playing a game. I thought, right, but you know, I haven't got the time to dedicate to sit here and go, right, at 7 o'clock every night, I'm going to stream a game. If I did that, all you'd see is people walking in and out of this room, interrupting me every 10 seconds. I couldn't stream if I wanted to, and even if I had a room, my own dedicated room to go and stream, my family don't give a shit about gaming. I've got an 18-year-old who doesn't give a crap about games anymore. He's not interested in them. I've got my wife who doesn't give a damn. She'd just walk in because she needed to get something from the room. She wouldn't care if I was halfway through a game. I've got a little boy who's 10 who just pesters me constantly for this, that and the other, as most 10-year-old boys do. It's just not a viable option for me to do it, even if I wanted to do it. So, but I do still enjoy doing YouTube. It's a creative outlet, and it's a good way for me to sort of talk to like-minded people and learn other people's opinions on things. So yeah, streaming and YouTube really, again, I think they sort of contribute towards the death of collecting games or retro games as a hobby, because again, it's just that oversaturation thing, a little bit like, has it become sort of hip to collect games? It's sort of hip now to stream every single game that you get. Again, I've kind of put future of gaming, but I've already talked about that. The last thing, is personal collection I've put, which is what I was just talking about before. So for me, gaming is, it's about the game itself. It's not about how many games you've got, it's about the quality of the games you've got and each of them experiences and where they take you. I think that's more important than how many games you've got. And if I come on with a big pile of games and sort of say, oh, you know, this is the big sort of collection of games that I picked up this week or this month or whatever, it's more of me sort of saying, look, these are really good games. These are games I've bought, this is why I've bought them, and they're all really good games, and I'm coming on here to share them with you and recommend that you buy some of these really good experiences. So that's where I'm coming from as a game enthusiast. Like I said, initially as a gamer, and I was going to do a video, I think a video I was thinking of doing in the future at some point is my history of gaming, you know, where I started, my gaming journey. I think that'll be a good video that I'm going to do in the next week or so on the channel, and talk about my progression, where I come from, because there's a big section of games of the gaming past there that I actually didn't have anything to do with. That was kind of which a lot of people say is the golden era of games, which was kind of the 16-bit kind of SNES, NES, Genesis, Mega Drive, that kind of era is a big major part for a lot of retro gamers, and that's the area that they concentrate in. But I wasn't into gaming around that era. I was totally out of the pit, so I don't have that nostalgia particularly for that era in gaming, even though it was one of the most important, and I recognise it was one of the most important times in gaming, and the leaps and, you know, it made at that time in gaming made. It just wasn't a time I was playing a lot of games. So I don't have that nostalgia, and for me gaming is about nostalgia. It's those experiences that I enjoy, and they're the experiences that I'm going to go out and buy. And as a collector, you know, collecting should all be about your personal experiences and how those games relate to you. It shouldn't just be about going out and buying everything and sticking it on a shelf and going, look how many games I've got. Every single game you've got on the shelf should be a game that's personal to you and should have a reason why that game is special to you. There should be a reason why you've bought that game and why it's sitting on your shelf, or why you've paid so much for it. There should always be a story behind every game you've got and why you own that game, not just buying games for the sake of buying games. because that's not game collecting, that's just hoarding. So, you know, that's my opinion anyway. If you like the video, put a thumbs up, share it with your friends or whatever. If you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button. I try and make as many videos as I can, and if you don't like it, put some comments below, and I respond to everyone. So yeah, just my thoughts on the way the hobby of game collecting. I keep saying game collecting, but I keep saying I don't class myself as a game collector. Or my thoughts on gaming as a hobby and how it's going, or where it's going, and why we collect games. Anyway, take care of yourselves. I shall speak to you later, and yeah, I'll probably be back with another video pretty soon, hopefully. Take care. Bye.